Bob, good morning. How are you?
Good, Dan. I've been hearing you say all morning what a fun show it's been. Let me see what I can do to slow it down here.
Well, just like baseball, you're here to slow it down.
Right. It's not a question of the length of the game. It's a question of pace, right? Let's be clear on that. It's pace.
All right. What did you agree with Goose Gossage with what he said yesterday? Anything that you said, I agree with him.
I thought it was over the top. And an interesting thing is, although he wasn't talking specifically about what Bryce Harper said, Gossage was a guy with flair. He wasn't just good. He had presence. He had an elaborate and distinctive delivery. You knew he was there. There have always been guys who played with flair. Choreographed celebrations and specific look-at-me stuff is relatively new in sports, but it's interesting that Gossage is the guy who made the comment. Now, I understand what he's talking about with Bautista is not so much a matter of celebration, but a matter of what especially an old-timer would perceive as rubbing it in. Mm-hmm. This is not the same thing as stealing a base when you're ahead 8-0, or even bunting when a guy has a no-hitter going. Those are kind of the unwritten rules, and we can talk about that another time. But what Bautista did was perceived not just by former players, but even by a whole lot of current players as not exuberance or celebration of a big home run in a big moment, but basically bleep you. And that rubs some guys the wrong way.
Well, Bautista said that he was out of his mind when he did it. I mean, he doesn't do that all the time. And
I get it.
And plus, baseball has been promoting that bat flip. If you go to their website, that's probably the most viewed highlight from last year.
Yeah, hey, listen, I don't have much of a problem with it. I do think that there's a distinction that can be made, and people seem unwilling in a lot of situations to make what should be obvious distinctions between real spontaneous celebrations and real exuberance that's good-natured and stuff that it happens more in football. Let's say you're losing the game by 3 touchdowns, but now I've made a tackle, and this is more about obvious self-regard, and maybe I can get on SportsCenter or whatever. Mm-hmm. That stuff is just obnoxious and annoying, and there are some people that apparently can't make the distinction that personality isn't always measured in decibel levels, that there's a difference between flair. I mean, you can go back the whole history of sports before we were born, where competitors had all kinds of flair. And if you want to add a little bit of good-natured celebrating to it, who begrudges Steph Curry his little shimmy that he does after doing things that aren't just fantastic, but are changing and transforming the game? Who begrudges him that? You'd have to be beyond crotchety to feel that way. But there are some situations that are just flat-out obnoxious because of the circumstances in the game and because you know that it's all about me, not about the team did well and we're all celebrating together, but it's all about me. And I think that rubs sensible people the wrong way.
Bryce Harper says the sport is tired. What does Bryce Harper want in the game, or what do you think he means by tired?
Well, I read the whole story, and first of all, I think Bryce Harper, it's obvious he's a great player, unanimous MVP at a young age, but he's a guy who's good for the game. Let's say he and Mike Trout are the two best players in the game. Mike Trout is a tremendous player to watch, but there is a certain quality that's hard to describe, but you know it when you see it, that Bryce Harper has that separates him a little bit. Doesn't make him better, but there's something about him, something maybe a little bit more compelling or a little element of danger, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think actually the evidence is against Bryce's main point. If his point is that you can't celebrate as much as guys do in basketball and football, okay, fine, as long as it doesn't cross a line into where you really are directly disrespecting the opponent, I don't see any problem. But look around. And this is just off the top of my head. Trout and Harper and Giancarlo Stanton and Bautista and Andrew McCutchen and Kershaw and Carlos Correa and Chris Bryant. And if you ever really pulls it together, Yasiel Puig. And where's the lack of guys with flair and star power? And when you look at baseball as a business is thriving in every way except for national television ratings, which is not an unimportant consideration. But when we talk sometimes about the supposed golden age of baseball, and we all love the baseball that we first fell in love with when we were kids, but by every measure, attendance, real television ratings, when you cobble together local and regional, the way people follow the sport through fantasy leagues or the internet or whatever it may be, baseball has never been more popular. It does have an issue with national TV ratings, and there is a point to be made about how it seems that football players and some basketball players kind of break through and become part of the cultural zeitgeist in a way that most baseball players have not. So I'm acknowledging those things. But to say that the sky is falling or baseball is tired and nobody wants to watch baseball, I can't wait for opening day.
But you also have the commissioner and Cal Ripken, and they're looking at, I don't know if it's a committee, but they got together and they were spitballing, what can we do here to change the game, improve the game, liven the game, whatever it might be. The commissioner has said that he's looking into that.
Yeah. And he's right about a lot of things. I've been saying for 20 years that baseball's pleasing leisurely pace has become a lethargic pace. That's something that they have to look into. There's no question that above everything else. But part of the problem there is something you can't legislate away. You have more power pitchers than you have ever had before. Strikeout rates are higher than they've ever been before. Contact rates are lower. That means you go deeper and deeper into counts, and you get more and more pitching changes during the course of the game because now they're watching that more closely. Some of that is simply an outcome of the way the game is played now and some of the strategy of the game, and you can't legislate it away. But if you want to say you're going to put in a pitch clock, which they've been experimenting with in the fall leagues and whatnot, put in a pitch clock when no one's on base, and you're going to enforce a guy staying in the batter's box, and you don't have to play your personal theme song every single time, your fourth at-bat coming from the on-deck circle to the plate, all those things, be ready to go when the commercial ends, because they're not going to cut the commercials back because that's where the money comes from. But all those things that can be legislated to move the game back toward its proper leisurely pace, I'm all for it.
Good to visit with you again, Bob. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I didn't even get in trouble this time. This is a breakthrough for me.
I know. Is there a topic you would like to try to get in trouble on?
I just realized I have an appointment.
Oh,
good to
okay.
talk to you, Dan.
All right, Bob. Thanks, Bob.